Welcome to another episode of Live Healthy Longer with Dr. Jim. And let's discover if you can communicate with family members and friends who have passed away. This episode is supported in part by Amazon Books. Their slogan is everything from A to Z. And I'll have some great recommendations for you at the conclusion of this podcast. Now here's our host, Dr. Jim.
This is Dr. Jim Polikoff, and I'm excited about our special two-part series, What Happens After Death, and Is Reincarnation Actually Real? Now, in this second and final episode, we're going to discover evidence that we have had past lives and how they affect our present life. Also, we're going to explore what happens after we die in the phase called afterlife. I'm fortunate to have three outstanding guests for this episode. They're experts in this subject matter, and they're going to take us on the journey. But you're actually also going to hear recordings of my personal past lives. I must admit, these very credible revelations of who I was in past lifetimes were both astonishing and impactful. Now, I better understand why I am who I am today. My first guest is Jennifer Catlin, a certified hypnotherapist trained in the prestigious Duke Health Integrative Medicine Mindful Program. Jennifer practices in Cary, North Carolina, and she helps her clients recall their past lives through clinical hypnosis. My research revealed that oftentimes the phobias we experience can be related to previous lifetimes. So, here goes my first question to Jennifer Catlin. Is it possible that our built-in mechanism of fear can stem from experiences we carry with us from past lives?
Absolutely. It can stem from so many experiences, including things that we were conditioned on certain belief systems and thoughts in childhood. The way I see childhood is not separate from other lifetimes either. Childhood oftentimes can be a repeat pattern of past lives or their lifetimes, or even the opposite experience where sometimes the soul may swing in the complete opposite direction. Like, I've had this experience, never going to let that happen again. And now I'm going to learn from the other side of the coin.
So you put up a barrier, so to speak, then, right?
Sure. I mean, I believe we come into each lifetime with whatever it is we need in order to have the experience that we're going to choose to have. So we can have energetic imprints from other lifetimes, which can include fears that develop from experiences in other lifetimes. That energetic imprint remains, and whether or not we choose to bring that imprint into this current life is going to be dependent on what are we here to experience and to learn and grow from.
Interesting. Now, I'm well aware of your talent to dig into past lives by employing hypnotherapy, but let's begin by dispelling some of the myths that surround hypnosis. I mean, some people says, well, it's in the field of magic or voodoo. Is there a scientific basis for hypnotherapy?
There is, and you can actually look up sites like, in the Western medicine field, Cleveland Clinic, even the government, the National Institute for Health has information about hypnosis on there. And so you can see there's many studies done. There have been over, I believe, 31 clinical trials on hypnosis, just even in the medical field. There are people who utilize hypnosis and studies that have been done. It's hard to get a double-blind study because there's no way for people to not know if they're experiencing hypnosis. Like, you can give a placebo and a pill, but you can't really do that with hypnosis. So we only have limited ways to research this when it comes to double-blind research studies. However, what we do know is there are many people who've experienced undergoing even surgery utilizing just a local anesthetic and hypnosis, which allows them to have less anesthesia and recover faster, less post-operative pain. It's been used for pain relief, smoking cessation, weight loss, anxiety, self-confidence, all kinds of things.
So the bottom line is there is a scientific basis.
there is. There's a misconception that it is this woo-woo magic thing, but actually hypnosis is something we all experience every single day without realizing it. If anybody has ever driven down the road and started daydreaming, or sometimes we space out and it's like, whoa, how did I already get here? To from point A to point B. That's a hypnotic experience. And there's many
Interesting.
other examples of that. There's many examples.
My actual discussion with Jennifer Catlin was much longer, and it was absolutely fascinating. So I strongly recommend that you listen to the complete full-length interview featured on my website, jamespolikoff.com. In the meantime, there are some who may not be comfortable with hypnosis, but would like an opportunity to access their past lives. As Jennifer stated, this can be helpful to determine the cause of present-day obstacles and identify our purpose in this lifetime. My next two guests will provide alternative methods of determining who we were and what we did in our previous lives. Plus, you're going to actually hear portions of a session where I actually discover two of my past lifetimes. Now, I want you to meet Katie Smith. Katie is a highly respected psychic medium who practices in Charleston, South Carolina. Many people actually choose her skills as their spiritual advisor, and she's enabled many clients to heal from past life traumas. Katie Smith is known as a natural-born medium, so I asked her when her intuitive abilities actually began. Apparently, Katie, your connection to the world beyond became apparent to you when you were actually a child. You spoke of angels and past lives, people you never even met. So why don't you tell us about your early formative years?
Sure. So it's my belief that there are born mediums, and then there's people that can pop into mediumship or study it to get better at it because it is a language. For me, I was a born medium. So this meant when I was really little, even like 2 and 3 years old, I was telling my parents how to plant crops based on some old like Native American traditions that, of course, there was no way that I could know that. I would be talking to ancestors and I would describe them, and my mom would be like, how do you know my grandparents? So there were things that would happen in dreams actually that ended up coming true that would be like on the news and things of that nature as I got a little bit older. So there was always, this was always with me. And so were my angels. I would be playing and they would be there. I mean, a lot of times people refer to them as like a, imaginary friend. But for me, I've literally called them angels and I always had them around me. So my parents, especially my mother, was like, all right, I'm going to write this stuff down and just kind of go with the flow. But it was a very interesting way to start my journey.
You're known as a psychic medium, but you refer to yourself as a modern mystic, and your clients call you their spiritual advisor. So how does this all fit together?
I have many names. But it really is dependent upon what the need is of the individual. So I know that I can connect in with your soul psychically, anybody's soul who has a physical body that's psychic. I can connect in with those that do not have a physical body. I can communicate with their soul, and that's mediumship. But I also believe that spiritual advising is more about like what's going on in your life now. And that's connecting in with spirit guides and kind of helping you see your life from a spiritual perspective. And then I myself refer to who I am as a modern mystic because I believe in all the magic, all the woo, all the amazing things that the universe can do. But I am modern. I understand that we live in a modern world and there's things in this world that we just can't forget about or we can't sidestep. So I try to merge our modern lifestyle with the magic of the universe.
I think the best way for my listeners to have a feel for what a past life reading consists of, let's listen to a portion of my session with you. I'd asked you to discover a couple of examples from the past which served to influence my present life. And the first recording that we're going to play dates way back. I was attired, hard to believe, I can't imagine it, but I was attired only in a loincloth, and I lived in an early civilization. I don't know if it was a jungle or what it was, but way back that you described. So let's listen to that for a moment.
Feel like I'm getting into a village, and I do feel like I'm looking at your soul. Now it's your soul, but it's not your image, because your image to me looks very much like, I feel like you have darker skin. And you do still resonate with being male, but it's very darker skin and male. And I do feel like I have like limited amount of clothes on. So that means to me like almost like loinclothy. So I know I'm very far back in time. But as I merge into him, and I do want to say him because he's definitely male, I feel as though your soul was in that body. And the fascinating part about it is I feel very much like a healer of like a village. I feel like connecting with others and healing others and listening, being a very good listener of others is what this soul lifetime was about. And the reason I feel like I'm starting here is because it's interesting. My throat is getting a little bit closed up. So I feel like you didn't finish what you meant to do in that lifetime, which is very much what you're doing in this lifetime in an ultra modern way.
As a side note for my listeners, the past life experience you just heard helped me to better understand what has inspired me to become a nutritionist and a specialist in the healthcare field. This session clearly helped me to validate my sense of purpose. So let's get back to my interview with Katie for a startling revelation. Now, since so many people are gender oriented, and that kind of shocked me when I found out it might be difficult to wrap our minds around having a past life as both a man and a woman. And I've obviously always thought of myself as a man, although in an earlier reading a couple of years ago, it was pointed out that I probably was a woman. But why don't we listen to a portion of our session where you actually identify me in a different gender in that past lifetime?
I feel like I'm popping into another lifetime. So if you will, we need to kind of go back into another lifetime because as I bring up women, I do feel like I'm connecting in with one of your lifetimes as a woman way. But I know that it's that lifetime in which you were like, I'll never let anyone take my power again. And the power is in the visual, and the visual is around the head and the hair. So it's very indicative of a past life in that way. And also that makes sense then too, for the belief system that you had then and not being able to share it. So it's become a mission in your soul and in your solar plex to share. Being here as you as a woman and then having your power taken away. It's indicative of sexual trauma, right? And I do see this like not going, it's interesting because I do get the number 17 to 18. So that means to me like that is like an age time frame in which I'm at. But I also feel like I have like it's almost like a pilgrimy looking dress. Like I feel like I have a big long dress on with like almost like an apron type thing over it. Very like muddy and dirty. I also feel that as well. Almost could be actually like it could be. I almost feel like I'm in like London time frame too. Like I feel like I'm in London. Does that all make sense to you?
Well, yes.
Or hungry, not being seen, not being heard, having your power taken away, not being able to have a fulfilling life. And that is very much I have to say, again, I'm not just, it was tragic, but it's a catalyst.
So, Katie, that explains why I tend to oftentimes be assertive when I'm fighting for a principle or a cause. Could it be the reason why I've often fought for others during this lifetime? Does that make sense to you?
100%, 100%. Like we're saying, each and every one of your past lives like come together to make your purpose. So again, this is a beautiful thing that has happened from such tragedy. Your soul has learned how to take that and apply it not only to your soul development, but to the development of others and the healing and the helping of others. So it's like almost that martyrdom. You're like, okay, that life was a little bit of a martyrdom life, but that's going to help me and it's going to help so many other people in the next life. And quite honestly, that type of catalyst and that feeling can apply to our current lives too within it. Every time there's something negative or you feel like a martyr, it's like, how can we apply that and help our soul develop and then the souls of others? So you were doing exactly what, in my opinion, I believe our souls are meant to do here. It's like spread love and spread healing. And for you, it's just a really strong need because you had a lifetime in which you really weren't able to do that. It was taken away from you.
Now, I found Katie Smith to be not only credible, but a skilled and gifted psychic medium. And I want you to know that there's much more enlightening information that Katie shared with me. So I'm going to encourage you to actually hear the complete, full-length interview by visiting my website, jamespolikoff.com. But first, let's get to portions of my final interview in this episode. Karen Cubico is considered to be one of America's leading past life regressionists. She brings the best of both worlds as a certified hypnotherapist, as well as a healing clairvoyant with psychic intuitive skills. Karen practices in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and also offers a variety of training programs and classes. Karen practices in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and she also offers a variety of training programs and classes. At the beginning of our interview, I asked Karen to further amplify why and how our past lives contribute to who we are today. So, why is knowing and understanding our past lives important? I mean, do we find purpose that way in our current lives? What's the importance of it?
Well, so I guess how to explain that? So first of all, we're a spiritual being having this human existence, okay? And if you think about it, everything that's happening to us is happening in this right now, okay? And if we've had multiple lifetimes, even in between lives, types of things occurring, we are the sum total of everything we've experienced. So if we had a life lesson that we didn't learn in another lifetime to speak clearly or to stand up for yourself or really stand your ground, do something that you really cared about, or not get stuck in the doldrum of working yourself to death, that type of thing. When you are aware that you've had all these multiple lifetimes, you might understand why you are doing the certain things that you did, why you picked the parents that you have had, why you pick the parents that you have now, and why you have chosen to go through some of these things that are somewhat difficult in this human life.
Right. Well, why
It
we have
explains it.
traumas that we do. Where do these traumas come from? From a past life, oftentimes, correct?
Well, sure. And then you might have fears, Jim, in this current lifetime where you feel like you can't swim in a pool or you will never go near the ocean if you have a fear of water, that type of thing. Or you might be afraid to fly for some unknown reason. Or you might feel uncomfortable to drive over a bridge or something like that. All that has zero roots in this current lifetime. And so when you go back and look in other past lifetimes, it's like that's exactly why. That's
Well, and I'm
exactly
sure
why.
that happened to me too, because when I go into a tall building and I start to look over the side of the building, I almost feel like gravity is going to pull me over the
Yeah,
railing and crash way down. And it gives me that
right.
feeling, that empty stomach feeling, so to speak. So, yeah,
Sure.
I mean, that trauma had to come from somewhere.
Exactly. And if you can't explain that in this current lifetime, then generally it is something that's happened in a past life. It's like an unresolved trauma that you haven't worked through.
So it's important that we know about it because, perhaps that's a way to get rid of it. If I wish I could figure out what happened on those tall buildings, but we'll get into that later. So,
That's another discussion, Jim.
right, exactly. So there are additional benefits to learning your past lives. I mean, I'm assuming it can help in your career, what you're doing in your life, your love life can help with your love life, your health. I would imagine knowing your past lives impacts all of these things, right?
Wow. I mean, it just goes so much because, if you've had an unexplainable illness in this current lifetime, now it could be compounded stuff from that's happened in this lifetime. But if you have no idea why you always have a pain in your shoulder or something like that, something that's unexplainable, and you go to the doctor and they can't figure anything out, but you go and you decide to do a past life regression, we'll just say randomly, not expecting to figure out this shoulder business, and something comes up where your shoulder was affected or hurt in a past lifetime, and then your shoulder feels better when you're done. I mean, it's just a interesting coincidence, but did it give you that healing? You know what I mean? And so that's just one health related something that I can give as an example. There's tons of stuff that people have come and asked about specifically and found lifetimes where those types of things come up. It's wild and crazy, but cool at the same time.
Prior to this interview, I had a past life session with Karen Cubico that I wish to share. She took me back, way back, to ancient Egypt, where then I was a young woman from a well-to-do family.
one of your past lifetimes where you were female. Now, remember, we can be male or female in these lifetimes because as a spiritual being, we're neither sex. It feels like it just depends on what you're trying to learn as what sex you choose to be in a past lifetime, because it's almost irrelevant what sex you are. It's more relevant on what lesson did you learn on a soul level. Talking to me about a lifetime that you had in Egypt. You were female in your 20s. It's 12,000 BC. And you were very upper class and you're well dressed. You're well taken care of. You're very upper class. It doesn't feel like you had like a worry or a care, but you were not, you were very smart also. You knew a lot of stuff. You had been taught a lot of things on purpose, because of your status, because it just feels like you lived with your parents and that was just how it was. But you were taking this walk, you're outside, you have your shoes off, you're holding them, you have this long white gown on with a tie around the middle. Your hair is very well manicured and it is long and black and it feels like it has a little bit of a wave to it, but it's very thick. It's very, very thick and long. And you step on this crystal. It's like a green glass-like, it's almost like it's glass, but it doesn't feel like it's glass. I feel like it's a stone or a crystal of some kind that just happened to be there, and it really cut your foot bad. And so what happens next, though, is the point of it. This foot got infected and you felt so out of control. You are this upper class girl experiencing this issue. You have these hordes of people around you dictating what they're going to do to this foot to make it feel better. None of it's working, and they're not listening to you. They don't want to hear what you have to say. Caused like a major infection that caused your death. But it caused your death. So you died believing I have no say and I'm not in control. So that can leak through into other lifetimes, okay?
Now, here's a side note to my listeners. Karen's explanation about how I was helpless and had no control in preventing my death from a foot infection has a definite bearing on why, in this lifetime, I tend to be resistant and losing control. In any case, let's get back to my interview with Karen. She has a number of clients who have remembered their experiences in afterlife. So I asked her about life after death. Do we experience some of the same things we really enjoyed in life itself and re-experience some of these things in a spiritual sense?
I have regressed somebody who is a veterinarian in this current lifetime. And on the other side, in between life, she was in charge of the animal section of heaven, which they were able to describe in very
pretty big section, I would imagine.
Well, it was so interesting. It was so interesting, honestly, because it was an immense. Everything feels infinite up there. It feels brightly lit, but there's no sun that you see. But it is definitely a whole other section for all these animals, and she was helping them feel comfortable coming to have a lifetime again with somebody or whatever they're choosing to work through. No different than our council member spirit guides trying to work with us. And speaking of the spirit guides, if you wanted to, when you are in between lifetimes, you can choose to be a spirit guide for someone in the life and living.
Oh.
No different than a past or loved one's watching over you. It's kind of that same vibe, but it sometimes is more intense than that. Some of these spirit guides that I've interacted with and met, they have never had a lifetime here on this earth, but they are all about helping you, inspiring you, and working with you so that you can learn whatever or achieve some next great goal of some kind that you picked out on some level.
As in the other interviews, I think it's important to know that in my discussion with Karen, we went much more into afterlife and reincarnation. So I definitely suggest that you listen to the full, complete interview on my website, jamespolikoff.com. Yes, you can hear all three of these enlightening interviews in their full versions. I'll be right back with new tips for a healthier, longer life.
You can hear Dr. Jim's complete, exciting interviews with Jennifer Catlin, Katie Smith, and Karen Cubico by visiting our website, jamespolikoff.com. That's James, P-O-L-A-K-O-F.com. Again, jamespolikoff.com. You can also reach out directly to Jennifer Catlin at her website, Jen, Catlin, Catlin.com. That's jencatlin.com. And for Katie Smith, here's her website, katieosoul.com. Again, Katie, Katie, the letter O, and the word soul, katieosoul.com. And don't forget, Karen Cubico can be reached at karencubico.com. That's Karen, KarenKubicko.com, karencubico.com. You'll also find information about Jennifer, Katie, and Karen found on our website, jamespolikoff.com. And here are 3 excellent books you can read or buy on amazon.com. Live Healthy Longer with Dr. Jim, written by our very own Dr. Jim Polikoff. And don't forget to check out the terrific reviews on Amazon. Also, The Real You Only Better is taking you inside the world of plastic surgery. And if you're looking for a romantic story about 2 reincarnated lovers, check out Rebirth of Aaron O'Brien. They all can be found at amazon.com. For more information, come to our website, jamespolikoff.com. That's James, P-O-L-A-K-O-F.com. Now back to Dr. Jim.
I want to once again thank all 3 guests for sharing their expertise with us. And I also want to express my personal appreciation to Katie and Karen for enlightening me on some of my past lives. It was indeed a special experience. And again, remember, you can hear their full interviews on my website, jamespolikoff.com. And speaking of past lives, now it's time to learn the differences between foods from the past compared to what we eat today. The National Institutes of Health reports that about 74% of Americans are overweight. In fact, 43% are actually considered obese. Now, the biggest difference between foods of today compared to a century ago is the amount of processing and additives involved. In the early 1900s, the majority of meals were prepared freshly from raw ingredients. But today, even home-cooked meals often contain too much sugar and sodium, saturated fats, artificial ingredients, and certainly they have excess calories. In fact, research has associated the increased consumption of ultra-processed foods with a higher risk of heart conditions, cancer, and numerous additional health problems. The 1950s introduced fast foods, which emphasized speed above nutrition. Plus, fast foods are often high in calories, fat, and sugar, while they're also low in nutrients and fiber. I encourage you to read my blog, The Hidden Dangers of Processed and Fast Foods. All you have to do is simply visit our website, jamespolikoff.com, to learn the real facts and find solutions. And remember that a new episode of Live Healthy Longer is available each and every Wednesday. Yes, each week I'm going to be covering important issues that affect our well-being, including body, mind, and soul. This is Dr. Jim Polikoff, and I thank you for joining me. And as my salutation in this episode, let's live together, healthy, happy, and longer.